Today's Netherlands railway is renowned for being modern, efficient and reliable. But how did we get here? Well, for this visit to Spoorwegmuseum, the Dutch National Railway Museum, we came by train from Utrecht Centraal to Maliebaan. Check out the end of the earlier video in the description if you haven't done so yet. Otherwise, let's go much further back and see how things have progressed. Maliebaan was a main station in Utrecht, but initially closed in 1939, Centraal Station taking over by that point. In 1954, the National Railway Museum moved here and the station was refurbished extensively. There have been quite a few new buildings over the years. The last major work was in 2003. Today there are exhibits indoors and out, each detailing how people's lives have changed over the years, and the railways were at the forefront. In the beginning, as with most countries, was steam. While many trains were built domestically in the 20th century at Werkspoor, this wasn't so much the case in the century before. These examples were sourced in the UK and Germany. Here, we have a superb example of what was engineered in this country. However, steam's days were numbered. An agreement to use a standard electrification of 1500 volts DC was made in 1922. By 1938, state-owned Nederlandse Spoorwegen, Dutch Railways, was formed. After World War II, as part of the country's reconstruction, main lines would be electrified. Lines considered too expensive to electrify due to the lower number of passengers carried would be replaced by diesel trains. All the while, the road network's continual expansion was luring people away from the humble train. Of course, attempts to keep people on trains was earlier than you might think. This electric single carriage effort looks luxurious compared to the wooden seated affairs of the same era. And it wasn't just about adding comfort to rail journeys. It was also about travelling to other countries and even dining in style along the way. Even the choice of sleeping in a proper bed, feeling refreshed the following morning. The move away from steam meant new solutions for less patronised branch lines. By the 1950s, Rotterdam's Allen was producing diesel units like these. It started a trend of streamlined designs that were simpler to use and maintain. Meanwhile, wagons and coaches needed to be moved about, leading to this class being produced. Looks familiar? It's based on the LMS British Rail Class 11 and was built in the north of England, whereas this design from France was for heavier work, moving goods and passengers. The 1950s also saw the replacement of wooden carriages by steel-constructed versions like Plan E. and new carriages for main routes meant shiny new electric locomotives were required. Werkspoor was kept busy. Sometimes designers didn't get it right first time. A long-running campaign by NS drivers regarding the lack of protection provided by the 1100 class forced the company to retrospectively change the cab to be more like the French Nez Cassé family, like this. By this point, cab design on other locos and units were already providing better protection. Now, if this 1200 class loco looks American, indeed it was a US design, built in the Netherlands. If you've ever seen the inside, the cab of any US goods loco or US derived locos like the UK Class 66, this layout will look very familiar. Longer trains required more power, and this 1300 class had 50% more than the 1200 class. However, the need to expand sometimes required a different approach. This 1500 class actually started off life at British Rail's EM2 class, later Class 77, hauling passengers and goods in the north of England, known as the Woodhead route. It was powered by what soon became a non-standard electrification of 1500 volts DC. British Rail had decided 25 kilovolts AC, 50 Hz, would be the overhead power default. This fact played a role in the decision to close the route, passengers first, then goods, with the beaching cuts in the 1960s. That's when BR started chatting to NS, who needed extra locos to carry out timetable improvements for 1970 after a previous plan to create the 1400 class didn't happen. The result was that NS bought 7 EM2s from BR and, following operational changes, ran on Dutch metals into the 1980s. So far, we've seen diesel multiple units, but probably Netherlands' greatest successes and iconic designs were with electric multiple units. This design started things off. Neat and streamlined, the MAT 46 was very much pointing at the future. By the 1960s, we had the Honda Cop design, combining a streamlined cab along with greater driver protection. The MAT 54 was an earlier example that later classes were based on. Honda Cop is Dutch for dog's head, as illustrated here. The DE3 was a diesel version. Its engines were also used in the DE4. That was illustrated on the cover of the popular UK Ladybird book of trains. All enthusiasts started somewhere, remember, and used on Trans-Europe Express services. This single-car unit was used to transport post across the country to areas that didn't necessarily need a number of post trains. But this design is probably the most iconic. The MAT 64 consisted of 2 and 4 car trains, named Plan V and Plan T respectively. Despite the plan to replace these trains with the VIRN class in the 1990s, they continued for another 20-odd years. By the 1970s, NS had the problem of overcrowding trains. They could lengthen stock, but this required making the platforms long enough to take the trains. The answer was double-deckers. France already ran double-deckers, and initially NS was to use a French design. However, Dutch people being some of the tallest in the world led to the problem of heads and necks being damaged due to the lack of headroom. The result was a revised design, which means, even to this day, saves the number of people needing medical attention. Looking through the curved windows used upstairs takes a little bit of getting used to, but there seems enough room to move about. Now, of course, twin deck trains are used in many countries. In the UK, however, the narrower loading gauge makes this much more difficult, hence single deckers still being the norm. It's not just us humans that need transporting, you know. Multiple unit operating efficiencies led to this driving car being developed for Benelux services. This meant loco haul trains could run without the loco needing to be run around. Earlier, I mentioned the French Nez Cassé family of vehicles. The name is French for broken nose, and dominated loco design from the 1960s onwards, selling to countries across the world. This 1700 class has 4.6 megawatts at its disposal. While the MAT 64 was a success, it was rather heavy and took a while to get up to speed, meaning stopping services could be a problem. The result was this MAT 74, which was lighter and really meant it could wear the Sprinter livery with pride. By the way, if you fancy your chances driving a MAT 74, there's a cab mock-up inside which simulates a typical Sprinter journey. Now, will I be able to stop in time? Probably best not find out. Which brings us to the present day. And that was our look into how Dutch trains evolved at the Spoorwegmuseum here in Utrecht. I'll leave you with scenes from this rather marvellous model layout. Hope you enjoyed it, safe travels, and thanks for watching.